Is it hype? WCW, right? It was the company that did change everything in professional wrestling, at least for 82 straight weeks. They beat Vince McMahon. WCW is the only wrestling company that can claim that they beat Vince McMahon. Sure, Impact Wrestling has beat the WWE in ratings in Australia. They've done better attendance in England, and a lot of people overlook that. I'm a big advocate of pointing that out, especially when it was actually happening. Let's just talk about All In. All In did 10,000, but in reality, WWE does that quite often. And hell, Impact Wrestling did it. I don't even know if that's as impressive as people like to make it out to be. But here's the deal. Let's look at what really is here. Panda Energy. Panda Energy don't put a lot of money into Impact Wrestling, and to date has put in more money than anybody else has put into professional wrestling. They got Hulk Hogan, they got Booker T, they got Rob Van Dam, they got Kurt Angle, they got Sting. A big part got Spike TV for TNA. They came easily the label of most money put into wrestling since WCW, since Ted Turner. And then there was the WWP promotion. They were going to do all of this. They were going to give wrestlers health care. They were going to shoot their wrestling in 3D. Sean Waltman talked about this a little bit on his radio show or podcast, whatever you want to call it. They were by the New York Mets. They were going to do a lot for professional wrestling. As we've seen, for whatever reason, that never really developed. And then, now, there is the Khan family. The Khan family put on a press conference. Let's talk about things people aren't really talking about. Everyone's talking about Chris Jericho. Everyone's talking about Kenny Omega. Everyone is talking about any wrestler they sign or don't sign, or any wrestler that WWE doesn't get or does get. Everyone's talking about that. But what they're not talking about, though, is to me the more impressive thing. There was a fucking crane. Are you hearing me? There was a crane, something you don't hardly ever see at Impact Wrestling anymore, a crane camera for a press conference. To me, that says everything. There was fireworks out the ass at the first. Pyro, just to fucking because. Smoke that you don't get to see in any wrestling at all. I mean, yes, you do see a little bit of it in Ring of Honor, and you do see, but this production is clearly at the same level of something you would have seen in the 1990s. This is not even a production level that you see at the WWE anymore. Not Pyro just because that. They used to do Pyro on Nitro and Pyro on Raw just fucking really because. They did, they had Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy for WCW just really because. They did live television just because. Those are the kind of things you're seeing out of AEW, and it says we have money. Now, let's talk about some of the big rumors. The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, is going to AEW. Clearly, people say, well, that's just a rumor. Well, clearly, it most likely is a rumor, and it's probably put out there by AEW. There's also the rumor that John Cena is going to go to AEW. Is this a pipe dream? I hear people say, oh, it's a pipe dream, it's a pipe dream. Well, I don't know whose pipe dream it is. I mean, I'm an anti-WWE guy. People say, well, this is just from anti-WWE people. What? This is not just from... Look, I'm talking about AEW because it's relevant, right? I'm an Impact Wrestling mark. You could definitely make a claim that I'm an Impact Wrestling mark. And that I hate WWE. Those would all be valid claims. But what you cannot make an argument is that I am a Cody Rhodes or Young Bucks. I was on the bench. Look, listen, hear me out. I'm Spot Monkey Young Bucks are nothing but spot monkey guys when they were in Impact, right? I wasn't quite there. But can we talk about something real quick when it comes to calling the Young Bucks spot monkeys? Their willingness to accept it, right? To put it in being the elite and say, hey, we're spot monkeys. And then to embrace it, to say, hey, we are indie wrestlers. You want to call us a bunch of indie wrestlers? You know, we wear that with a badge of honor. We're indie wrestlers. Their willingness to do that instead of trying to say, no, we are superstars just like they are. It's kind of what Impact Wrestling does. It's like, you know, we can get all these big name wrestlers. And for them to treat Kenny Omega like a lot of fans would treat The Rock, I think it speaks volumes. Their ability to develop stars and create stars. The important, I am a mark for the press conference, and clearly someone else is, because the press conferences we've seen two already from this company. In fact, we haven't seen much else. But the hype machine works at AEW. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. As an Impact Wrestling fan, a long day one Impact Wrestling fan, I always used to say the WWE has shit, but they market it like gold. And Impact Wrestling has gold, and they market it like shit. And AEW pretty much has gold, and they're marketing it like it's gold. And that's a recipe for success. But if that doesn't add up enough, they also... Khan, the guy who is the president of AEW, is worth $7 billion. You hear me? You want to know why everyone's talking about this? $7 billion. Vince McMahon is only worth $2 billion. And that's being very generous. Very, very generous. $2 billion. $7 billion. And then he comes from a family where his brother's worth another $5 billion. And the net worth of the family is somewhere around $40 billion. That includes the Jaguars. Everybody knows about some soccer team, which soccer is football, whatever the fuck you want to call it, depending on where you are. It is massively popular in other places. And it's really hard for Americans to wrap their heads around how popular football, soccer is, because we couldn't give two fucks. I'm sure you're going to find some American who likes soccer, and I probably just offended him. But for the majority, Americans don't care about soccer. They just don't give no fucks. And they never have. And that's why it's never... But here's what they do care about. Football. And as much as Donald Trump tries to tell you, you know, quit watching football, we find out that Donald Trump loves the Patriots and he watches football. And, you know, he just doesn't like I'm not going to get into the knee saluting, if you should stand or not. But you know what? It's so polarizing because football is what everybody watches. In America, American football, it's everybody watches it. It's so much to the point. The American Football League is starting a league this Saturday. Their first game's this Saturday. And then the following year, the XFL. So there'll be 3 football leagues. Football's a big deal. And then the biggest right now is still the NFL. And the NFL had their big game, the Super Bowl, which is the most expensive ticket in all of sports. And you just buy your whole entire roster Super Bowl tickets just fucking because... Now, yes, you have connections because you own the Jaguars. It speaks volumes. It just speaks volumes to how much money they have and their willingness, which I think the Randy Orton, John Cena, The Rock thing, all those contract offers. I think a lot of that is because they just want people to say, hey, look, we have this much money. So if you are in the WWE, don't think we can't afford you, because we can afford The Rock, we can afford John Cena, we can afford Randy Orton, and that's why I think you see a lot of these contract offers. Of course, as a byproduct, you will end up landing a Rock, you'll end up landing a John Cena, you'll get a Randy Orton, you'll get one of them. If you offer all of them contracts, one of them is going to come to your side, and of course you want that, and you'll take it where you can get it, but really the bigger picture is that they're offering these contracts as a way to appeal to people who aren't them. Because the word of mouth that everyone knows that they have the money to afford The Rock, that they have the money to afford John Cena, that they have the money to afford Randy Orton, and that they're willing to pay huge contracts. Word of mouth gets out in the wrestling locker rooms the same way it gets around the wrestling community, and it's ability to bring major players. And this doesn't just mean wrestlers. A lot of people get hung up on this. This is production, guys. This company needs production levels at the WWE level, at the Impact Wrestling level, at the New Japan level. And therefore, the way you appeal to those is say, hey, look, if they're talking to The Rock, if they're talking to Randy Orton, if they're talking to John Cena, then the guy who's been producing Raw for months on end, they can talk to him too. And the reason why is, these guys came from the Friends. They came from a lot of these different shows. And I know they say they don't want writers. I promise you, they want anybody who's highly skilled. They want excuse the pun here, the elite. They want the elite. They want to have the best. And look, now I've told you, all Elite Wrestling deserves all the fanfare it's getting. It's not being blown up. I'm here to tell you, All Elite Wrestling is not blown out of proportion. What it is absolutely groundbreaking, huge company that can change professional wrestling beyond our wildest expectations. Because I think it's bigger than Ted. I hear people say, oh, this isn't as big as Ted Turner. This isn't WCW. No, I honestly think it's bigger than WCW, because we didn't really get this fanfare until Luger walked out, until Scott Hall walked out, until Hogan walked out on Monday Night Show. We haven't even got to the first show, and we already got that crazy fanfare there. I think the ratings are going to come in the same way. Right out the gate, you're going to see big ratings. And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, you'll never see this. You don't expect that. And if you lower expectations, then it's easier to achieve expectations. If you raise expectations, it's harder to achieve expectations. Marketing 101. They have lowered expectations of, we're not trying to compete. That's why you never hear them saying that, because they know that's the best way to compete. Don't get twisted in that. If you're talking to Randy Orton, if you're talking to John Cena, if you're talking to The Rock, you want to compete. If you're hanging out at a football stadium and you're giving away Super Bowl tickets to your wrestlers, you're wanting to compete. If you have a crane camera at a press conference, you are competing. You're going to compete. It's just, the little things in life really do matter. The simple things in life really do matter. The simple thing in production, the simple things, those things are what really go far. And the fact that they made Kenny Omega seem like just as big of a deal as Jericho is the little nuances that will change this company's chance of really, 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 really being bigger than WCW ever was. Because I really fully anticipate that. One thing is, when WCW went under, no one thought it could happen, right? WCW could not go under, because with the same battle that they fought when WCW was here, and then that battle that they fought when they finally got there, was WCW can never compete with the WWF, and then WCW is competing with the WWF, and then WCW can never go away. And then it went away. And people realized, oh shit, you don't realize how great something is until you don't have it anymore. You hear it all the time. But for nearly 2 decades, wrestling fans that were a part of the Attitude Era. I know new wrestling fans don't get it. They don't know what the fuck Attitude fans are on about. What we're on about is that there was wrestling. There was no one cared about anything else. If you went to Kmart or Walmart or Target, wrestling was from one side of the retail store to the other. And it was anywhere. You wanted a wrestling t-shirt, you could go to Dollar General, you could go to Family Dollar, you could go to Walmart, you could go to Kmart, you could get fucking $140 watches with Kevin Nash on them. You could go into K Jewelers and you could get expensive jewelry. You could go into the dollar store and get, a little piece of candy with Macho Man Randy Savage on it and a Slim Jim or some shit like that. That aspect of wrestling is, now it's pretty much that if you do see wrestling, it's only at the dollar store. If you do see clothes, they're all tacky. There's nothing fashionable. And that aspect is what fans miss from the 90s. The fact that wrestling was relevant. Then if you went to work, you could talk about professional wrestling. If you went to school, you could talk about professional wrestling, because it's what everybody watched last night. Everybody watched Nitro. Everybody watched Raw. Everybody watched ECW. That's what fans watched in the 90s. And when that changed, that's what they want to come back. And they want it and have wanted it for 2 long years. And I would say year by long for each year that it was, but it's been so long that would be annoying. Listen, what is happening now is similar to when Ted Turner came in and flexed his muscles. There is similarities. There's better things. Now let me be the negative guy. Because let me tell you, I'm not an AEW mark. I'm really not. And I want to be very clear on that. I'm not an AEW mark. AEW, what I expect. I expect AEW to have I expect AEW to come barreling out of the gate. I expect them to do good numbers on a big network. And I expect interest to be peaked. But let me use an XFL comparison. XFL was the last football league. This Saturday there's another football league. But XFL pulled a rating in wrestling. XFL pulled a rating in football that was unprecedented. It was, a lot of people said, oh shit, what do we have here? We had a lot of interest because the Super Bowl was the day before, and XFL created so much interest. I think that AEW interest is a lot like, I think we're going to see that massive rating because people are interested. But what happened with the XFL is the game sucked, the quality sucked, the production sucked. Actually, the production and quality was pretty good. It's just the football. The quality of the football sucked. They just weren't on par because they didn't train like NFL guys train. They didn't do spring training. They didn't do anything. They threw a bunch of guys on the field weeks before, and it was just atrocious. And if AEW produces that product on day one, when that big rating comes in, the next week you're going to see the same thing you've seen in the XFL. You're going to see the dismal rating. I kind of expect that. I expect that AEW won't last. I expect AEW will go out of business because they'll burn through all the cash in it. Because yes, Khan is very rich, or he'll say, I don't want to do this. And I do think AEW becomes a household name. I think anybody that's part of AEW becomes a household name. And those guys will be able to go on and become stars in Impact Wrestling, become stars anywhere they want to go, because they'll be huge household names, because they'll be on a program that will have 4 to 5 million people watching. And that's what's good for wrestling, because right now, 4 to 5 million people aren't watching. I think they'll have a bang period, and wrestling will be so hot. It'll make the WWE better. It'll obviously make Impact Wrestling New Japan. A lot of people will benefit from this, and a lot of the people that are probably scared right now, like Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, those companies will stand to do the biggest benefit, because if wrestling's popular and it's not the WWE, that tends to mean you created fans that will watch products like Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor. That's why I think it's important to just do business with them. Don't try to compete with their checkbook, because there is no competing with Khan's checkbook. There's no competing with the AEW checkbook. If they want John Cena, let them have him. If they want Brian Cage, you gotta let them have him, because you can't compete with that wallet. And chances are AEW's not going to last anyways. Those guys will come back. And they'll come back bigger stars with more people knowing who they are. So it's in your best interest just to let them go. And I think Vince is going to have a bigger problem. Vince always sees himself as the guy with all the money, and now he's not. He's not the company with all the money. And when he tries to compete, he's going to find out the hard way that he's not. He's not the company. He can't. When he's offering Randy Orton $2 million and then Khan comes in and offers $20 million, he can't compete. He just can't compete. If The Rock can make 3 times more than what he can make in Hollywood, is exactly why he left for Hollywood, is because he could make more money, and now he can make more than he could make in Hollywood. Of course, a guy like The Rock is going to come, right? You can also not be profitable that way, right? You can get The Rock, you can get John Cena, you can get Randy Orton, but you really can't be profitable that way. And that was the same problem WCW came into. And it didn't matter that he wanted to just spin, because Ted Turner loved professional wrestling, and no matter what, he liked his wrestling, and he wasn't getting rid of it. And then when the AOL merger happened, WCW was gone because it wasn't profitable. I think you're going to eventually see something some kind of merger, some reason why somebody's going to step in. The same way with Pan Energies. Pan Energy was Hulk Hogan, Booker T, Kurt Angle, anybody you want, and then all of a sudden Dixie Carter's mom and dad said, enough's enough. We're not getting our money. We're pulling the plug on this. And they did. And they got sold to Anthem, and lucky the company is still around today, but that's usually not how it turns out. So don't think that everyone who's following this is AEW March, because I personally, like I said, I think this company's going to blow up, do a lot of good things for professional wrestling, and it's going to die. I just think Impact Wrestling is going to be a huge benefit. I think any company like Ring of Honor that manages, yes, companies are going to die because of this. I think you're going to see any companies that are going to get raided. Mostly those companies will be the guys who try to compete with AEW who just cannot do it. And I think it could be the WWE. And if WWE goes out of business because of this, as an anti-WWE person, that really makes me happy. Because that opens the door for Impact Wrestling, that opens the door for Ring of Honor, that opens the door for good wrestling. Because I don't think WWE is that, but this is our biggest chance, right? Since we've had 2 decades. It doesn't mean everybody who supports this AEW mark. I think a lot of people are going to jump on board, including myself. Look, I'm an AEW bandwagon, right? I didn't see it. I didn't see whatever all the fuss was about. And I could potentially become a great fan. I love professional wrestling. I put a lot of money into professional wrestling, and I hate Vince McMahon, and I'll never watch his show. So I'm the kind of person that AEW would go after. And look, I don't like the dick flip. I think I'm with Jim Cornette. I think it's ridiculous. I think the invisible grenade is absolutely fucking ridiculous. And those are all the reasons I think this cannot work for a long period of time. But when you have money, it's going to work for some period of time. But long term, I don't think the dick flip's getting over to 5 million. The invisible grenade. But hey, South Park got over. Hey, Beavis and Butthead got over. Listen, and I think a lot of that hokiness, corniness is the same aspect, right? And Jackass was a phenomenon, right? Pretty much a lot of these same aspects. Those are all big phenomenons, and I think AEW might be tapped into that. Or it might not, but I tell you what, they got a lot of money to tap with, and that will be the big difference maker, especially early on. I'm Kent. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for all the notifications. We do cop block, which means we investigate the government with the audits, go into courthouses, different stuff. If you're not into that, that's cool too. And if you just like wrestling, just watch the wrestling videos. We got a playlist for just wrestling now. Obviously, all the other, we don't mislead on our playlist. So if you're watching one of those, or we try not to mislead on the titles. I'm not gonna say we're not into clickbait, but